Okay, I think I'm due for these kinds of videos now and then. It's one thing to be on a platform for so long and almost feel like nothing changes for the better. The least you can do, I feel, is voice out your suggestions. Obviously, people have done so throughout the 20 plus years of this platform's existence on several platforms, but I just realized that I, however, haven't ever publicly disclosed things that I would love to see implemented on the platform. And while I have a never ending list of requests, I feel it's best to take them in batches. That said, here are 5 features and or upgrades I wish IMVU would implement. Number 1, increase the texture size limit. This is not to seem ungrateful for the 512 by 512 upgrade that came with IMVU Studio by any means, of course, but with gaming generally, anything below a 2K texture, that's 2048 by 2048, kind of hurts the eyes. What really opened my eyes to this was when I started making animations independent of the IMVU ecosystem. My character's skins were breathtakingly clearer than the IMVU skin textures that use a scarily small 256 by 512 texture size. I don't want to pitch 1024 square pixels as a compromise because I'm sure that's the reason why the max is currently 512 square pixels, a compromise. So my hope is that IMVU goes all out and lets us make textures up to 2K. For one, we wouldn't need 3 to 10 materials for a decent top. Our avatar skins would look a lot clearer and we could even use normal maps for bumps. I predict that mesh heads might no longer need to be a thing because skin creators would have a lot more space to work with for their head textures. This also doesn't advocate that IMVU should upgrade the limits to 2K and then cap it at 2K for the next decade. No. My hope is that in this regard, IMVU catches up with the gaming animation 3D workspace standards. 2004 was over 2 decades ago. Number 2, live lip sync. It kind of surprises me how they've brought back voice chat but haven't thought of implementing live lip sync technology as well. Almost all the newer games and platforms have this AR kit setup. At least I'm sure VRChat and Inzoi have this setup. Basically, how this works is you let your phone record you in real time and your facial movements translate onto your avatar. I think this only works with iPhones newer than the iPhone X as well as Apple products released after the iPhone X, as in the case of VR. So how cool would it be now that IMVU has brought back voice chat? Your avatar's lips could move in sync with yours. In fact, there are even ways to generate lip movements without your camera being connected. But from what I understand, those use automated prediction models and aren't the best option for real-time transfer. I imagine that a feature like this would also make skit production a lot more dynamic. Now, when you film your avatars for skits, they aren't moving their mouths randomly. Of course, the ARKit heads in the SOB3D catalog can stand in for this, but you'd have to upload your recordings and animations to the IMVU catalog or film directly in create mode, which is still great, but a real-time solution would be much appreciated. Number 3, product icons in IMVU next. Big one. Other than the fact that creators' efforts in making decent product icons are just wasted, it still doesn't serve the transparency purpose that I think that they might be going for. A clear and, at this point, annoying example of this is with actions. If you want to buy an action or post pack in IMVU next, honestly, I bid you good luck. There is no way you know what you're up against before trying on the item. You're just left trying and trying until you find something remotely close to what you're looking for, whereas a simple icon could have saved you the stress. Yes, this doesn't absolve creators who make misleading icons for actions of their guilt, but stripping away the feature entirely was always kind of baffling. I hope they implement it in such a way that there's a toggle to shop with the icons shown or not shown. Number 4, custom avatar interactions. Now, this one's a bit uncommon, but hear me out. Currently, the only way IMVU lets us make interactions between avatars is through pose spots. Essentially, in Blender or whatever 3D program you animate with, you program 2 or more furniture nodes with poses that are meant to simulate avatar interactions. But to me, this approach feels drably static and somewhat dated. I love the ones you can perform on other avatars unprovoked. I actually don't know if they carry those over to IMVU next. I've never checked. But what I'm pitching here is to let creators have the ability to make custom interactions. It's kind of like in The Sims, where each new expansion pack gives your Sims a new set of social interactions. Imagine how ridiculous and fun hanging on IMVU could be if someone could pop into your chat room and just use a random uppercut interaction in your avatar and run off. And no, I wouldn't want it to work in a way that both users would need the interaction packs for it to work, because that would seriously zap the fun out of it, especially considering how tedious it can be at times to find the exact products in the shop. So this is something that I suggest that IMVU looks into implementing in the near future. Number 5, work cycles. I saved this one for last because I know it would be emphatically the biggest reach among the things I mentioned today. There isn't much to say here other than we would seriously want working avatars at some point. And on this point, I know I'm not alone. Take a look at the average Let's Play IMVU style videos, and this point makes itself almost instantly. IMVU, without the dynamics of things like this, just feels like a glorified dress-up game, which it really doesn't need to be, and something that just adds that touch of life to a platform is working avatars. Aren't we tired of entering chat rooms and everyone sitting down with their avatars that barely blink and barely even move ever since static avatars became a thing? Then there's always the annoying 10-user post spots that with everyone doing the exact same dance at the exact same time with little to no individual post spots variation. This one is more of a creator problem than a platform problem though. But yeah, it wouldn't be bad to make the platform feel more fun. I know this suggestion might not ever be feasible given that it would have to alter IMVU source code and engine. But should it be feasible, which I imagine it is, then I hope that they give this some consideration. All that's needed, I think, is an upgrade of the base female and male avatars from which all avatars are derived to include an extra stance for the work cycles. That way, all avatars that are already in the shop have a baseline work cycle. The path structure for the actual working animation is what the engineers might have to tinker with more sternly. And those are my suggestions. Unlike a lot of people around the time of its announcement, I was actually excited for IMVU Next and IMVU Studio. I loved the previews of the shiny items they would show us around that time. It felt like the platform was finally catching up, though some might argue later than expected. In the end, it still did some catching up where it could. I love IMVU Studio and create essentially everything with it now. That said, I do feel a few upgrades would be appreciated at this point, especially for full-on non-creator end users. There are many people whose sole interaction with IMVU was they made the avatar because they saw it in an ad, hopped into a few chat rooms, then took off. Which could easily not be the case if some of these improvements were made, I guess. But of course, I'm not omniscient. I can't know what kind of strain it would take for them to implement such things, if they even could at this point. I just wanted to think out loud. I'm curious to see if I'm alone in having these thoughts, What are some of the features you have been hoping to see on IMVU? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching this video, and here's to more 3D videos.